First off, I'd like to thank everyone for showing an interest and coming to our debate tonight. I'm Deputy Kurt Freitag. I'm married to my wife, Cheryl, and I have two daughters, Ashlyn and Lindsay. I have 21 years law enforcement experience, and 19 of those years are with Freeborn County. During that time, I was the instructor for pistol, rifle, and shotgun, use of force, taser, and field training officer. I've conducted many investigations of all levels through the years, and I'm also one of 3 personnel trained at using LoJack to find missing autistic children. I retired from the Army and the Army National Guards after 20 years of service as a combat engineer, and I held the rank of Sergeant First Class. During my career, I was a paratrooper, air assault, and I deployed to Bosnia. My duty stations included 2 years in Germany and 2.5 years in the Florida phase of the Army's Elite Ranger School. 17 of my 20 years have been in a leadership position as a non-commissioned officer, and I was also in charge of millions of dollars worth of equipment. I have actual leadership experience and a strong work ethic, which is what we need to turn the sheriff's office around. Also, the patrol union voted to determine who they wanted as their sheriff. I received 90 votes. I received 9 votes. My opponent received 0 votes. As your sheriff, my goals are to increase our patrol presence, vastly improve the quality of our investigations, improving morale, and increasing revenue with our detention facility. I will be a sheriff who is approachable for the taxpayers of our county. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Bob, opening statement.
Hi, I'm Bob Kindler. I am the current sheriff of Freeborn County. Before I go any further, I'd like to take just a moment to thank Randy Kerr, members of the chamber, everyone else who worked so hard to reschedule this event on the death of my father. I'd also especially like to thank Kurt, who was gracious enough to give me the same opportunity to appear before you. Finally, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for attending. I'd also like to thank those who will be watching in the next few days or who will be tuning in and listening. Your interest in our sheriff's office is very important, and it's much appreciated. 4 years ago, I was elected on a plan to reduce spending, cut unnecessary overtime, increase our emergency preparedness, increase training, and increase our patrol presence, along with many other things. I have accomplished everything I had set out to do and more, a lot more. But that doesn't mean that my work is done and that there aren't things that we can't continue to improve upon. In fact, my plan for the next 4 years is to build on the successes we have had while taking on the new challenges that await us. I will continue to maintain fiscal responsibility while continuing to enhance our government center and courtroom security, have successful transition of dispatchers to county employment, and enhance their training, acquire new technologies and equipment based on what we really need and what we can afford. In short, I have a plan. It is not business as usual. I am well prepared and well positioned as the leader of the sheriff's office to take on those challenges, and my education and experience will guide us. It is my hope that tonight we can have an intelligent and well-meaning conversation.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Randy. Now we will begin the back and forth portion, the questions, and I appreciate anyone who's offered up a question. You may, if you have one of those sheets, you may give them to one of the members of the chamber staff here. We have Sue over here and Jerry over here. So, and the questions do help. I really appreciate that. So this first question will be for you, Bob. Dispatchers will become county employees at the end of December. What plans do you have for improving the dispatch center, including equipment?
We have worked long and hard to bring the dispatchers over into Freeborn County employment, and you may ask what the reasoning for that is. The reason is they fall nicely under the emergency management plan. But just bringing them over as an employee isn't where this ends. We need to continue our training with them. We need to develop their integration with the county fire agencies that respond to our emergencies as well as law enforcement. They are an integral part of what we do for emergency services. My plan is to continue the upgrade of equipment as necessary, train these dispatchers with training that they haven't received before in the past, and develop them into a very professional dispatch agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
The dispatch center is, I think, one of the best ones that I've seen in my 21 years. Some of the things that I don't want to do is fix something that's not broken. I agree that we can increase some training with our dispatchers, and we can upgrade equipment as it becomes needed. We've just gone through some upgrades not that long ago. I think one of the big things that we have to do to integrate our dispatchers is to be fair about it. I've talked with a few of the dispatchers. They're not very happy with what's being proposed, and I think that we as a new employer for them should respect some of the things that they've accrued over the years as city employees. So in short, I want a smooth transition with the dispatchers so that they are happy and that at the end of the year, they don't choose to quit and leave. Thank you.
Kurt.
I'd like it.
Rebuttal, Bob?
We have been working hard with the union that represents the dispatchers. I have established a transition team to help in meeting the needs of the dispatchers as they're coming over. We are dealing with those things. There has to be an agreement between the city and the county as far as what their wages will be and how much time accrued that they have that will come over with them to the county.
Thank you very much. So I believe then it's Kurt's turn. Unless you have a response?
I'm good.
Rebuttal to that? Okay. Can you explain public and non-public data practice laws, and records retention laws in Minnesota?
Well, clearly a question that's come from the Kindler camp. I haven't received a lot of training for the release of public data. That job is up to him to send me to that schooling. He hasn't done it. However, when I win this election, there is an academy that's put on by the Sheriff's Association. I will be enrolled in that very first school and learn these new duties as a new sheriff. I don't think it's anything that is, impossible. Everyone has done it before me, and I can do it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
I could certainly explain to you the difference between confidential, private, and public data, but we would spend the next 3 days here discussing what it is and how it affects each and every one of us. Presumptively, all data collected by law enforcement is public unless there are specific reasons why it is not, why it is confidential, or why it is private. I don't know that this was a question that was submitted by anybody that is connected to me, but it is a very valid question. Data is one of the most troublesome areas we can have or get into as sheriff. If you don't know what you're doing with it, you can get a lawsuit. We as the sheriffs are personally and liably responsible for anything that is released, whether it's released from a deputy or our record staff or whoever. So we must know what we're doing and maintain that integrity with the data that we have.
Thank you, Bob. Bob, this question is for you. Say you win, what could be done to mend relations at the sheriff's office following the election?
There's a couple of things that we can do. First of all, when the election is over with, the campaigning is done, and trying to persuade people to side with one candidate or the other will come to an end. We will now have a clear direction on which way the employees will follow. They'll have a clear set of rules. I intend to maintain the way I have managed the sheriff's office in the past. I will expect people to do their jobs. I will provide them with the training that they need to improve themselves and to better do their jobs. I will provide them and make sure that they have a safe environment to work with, that is free of harassment. And we will take on the challenges that I laid out in my opening statement. We have a lot of good things going on in this agency. We need to get rid of the division that exists, and it will happen once this election is over.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
Fence mending begins with solid leadership. We have the problems that we have because we have an absentee leadership. We have irresponsible leadership in place. You know, we talked about harassment in the workplace. We've had a lot of harassment in the workplace. We've got a lot of former employees and current employees who can talk about harassment in the workplace. If we have solid leadership in place, leadership that's experienced, we wouldn't have these problems in the first place. When this election's over, and if I win, I'm going to unite the sheriff's office through being fair and consistent and distributing training for all deputies, not just a select few, which has been going on as well. So this whole thing comes down to leadership, and I'll provide that and bring the sheriff's office back together to be more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob, rebuttal?
Fair and consistent leadership is what we have. I hold people accountable for their actions. If they are not doing their job, they are brought to task and asked why. They're also given the opportunity to improve. That is not harassment, that is leadership. That is giving you, the citizens, the opportunity to get the law enforcement and public safety services that you are paying for.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt, final word?
Part of leadership is seeking responsibility and taking responsibility for your actions. As sheriff, if you see employees who are clearly breaking departmental policies, county policies, and also state laws, you have a duty and a moral obligation to act. You shouldn't be deciding whether or not this is your friend, or if this isn't in your best interest personally. You need to investigate the incident, get to the bottom of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. I believe it's going to be your turn. Kurt, what would you do career-wise should you lose this election?
Career-wise, I'm going to continue doing the same thing. I do my job. I do it well. I look out for the people of our county, and I do the best patrolling that I can, given the shortage that we have in our staffing numbers. I'm always busy on investigations. I enjoy it, and helping the people is what I like to do. You know, like I said, it's going to be business as usual if I don't win, and I'm not concerned about anything else beyond that besides doing my job. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
If I should happen to lose this election, my service to the citizens of Freeborn County will come to an end. In essence, that door closes. However, with that closing of that door, there's opportunity for me to go in many different directions. I'm not going to retire. I intend to go somewhere else, either in law enforcement or maybe even private business. I have a unique skill set that is in high demand, and I will just end my career with Freeborn County. Somebody else will get the benefit of having my experience and my leadership leading their organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Bob, this question is for you. Could you explain your view on the promotions procedure in the sheriff's office? How promotions are handed out?
When I took office in 2011, I changed the way promotions were handled and how we did that. I removed myself from the process completely, making it as fair as I could possibly make it. What we do now is, according to union contract, we need to offer any promoted position that is involving a union person or persons the opportunity to take a written exam. I do not create those exams. I have somebody else create them. Once those exams are taken, I do not score them. We then move into the interview phase, and I have members from the public, from within law enforcement, and from other departments within Freeborn County sitting in on those interview panels. They score the candidates, and then the final results of both the written test and the interviews are given to me, and the announcement of the promotion is made.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
Some of what he said is correct, but there needs to be more detail added to it. The written portion of the test is a non-quantifiable test. None of it is quantifiable. There is no, choose A, B, C, or D. There is no true or false. The test is completely subjective, and I think it's flawed in that aspect. It's not fair. The chief deputy also constructed the test. It's not done by someone who's, not part of the sheriff's office. It's not pulled from online where it's objective. It was created by the chief deputy, approved by the sheriff. And as far as the interview goes, I don't remember a whole lot about that. But what I do remember is that I was told that I was edged out by 3 points. And taking a look, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have
No.
anything further? So then this one is for you, Kurt.
Okay.
What is your view on the federal lawsuit filed by former jail administrator Marcelino Pena? And pardon me if I pronounce his name wrong. Marcelino Pena, right? What is your view on his lawsuit?
My view on the lawsuit is that it should never have happened in the first place. Mr. Pena was a licensed peace officer in the state of Minnesota, and when you're a licensed peace officer, and if the municipality that employs you chooses to terminate your employment because of allegations of wrongdoing, you have a certain set of state statutes that you have to abide by to terminate somebody. You can't shoot from the hip, you can't create your own rules, do your own investigation instead of having an impartial outside investigation investigate the matter. The case went before the Court of Appeals. Mr. Pena's attorney presented no evidence at his choosing, knowing that they're going on to federal court. That's obviously where the money's at. This lawsuit should never have happened. They should have done it right the first time. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
Numerous employees came forward with allegations of sexual harassment and bullying. I will not tolerate that type of behavior in the sheriff's office. Those employees have the right to come into that work environment and do their job and do it well. The investigation is not flawed. It was upheld by the Court of Appeals. It has now been filed on a federal level, but it is alleging racial discrimination. It is not alleging the same thing that the Court of Appeals already addressed. There will be a finding that Freeborn County acted correctly and did not act inappropriately, and this matter will go away once this election is done as well.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt, rebuttal?
This isn't a matter of a bunch of people coming forward and complaining. It's a matter of doing something the right way the first time. You have a set of statutes that you have to abide by. No one is saying anything else. Do it right the first time. You're not going to find yourself in federal court getting sued personally, along with your chief deputy and all of us in the county. That's what I'm saying. Just do it right the first time.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob, additional comments?
It was done right the first time. The Court of Appeals upheld that and found in favor of Freeborn County. We acted correctly.
I believe he's going to reset the computer.
You can go ahead.
Okay, so everything's gonna be fine, just, we have a technician at the table here. For the radio.
Mr. Walsh.
Telling the radio listeners here. Okay, so I believe it's Bob's turn at this point.
Yes.
And this next question is, could you please explain your experience with budgeting?
That's the entire question?
Well, I assume it means the sheriff's office budgeting.
Okay.
specifically.
All right. My experience with budgeting happened long before I became sheriff. I became interested in the budget of Freeborn County, and looking back to the election of 2010, I identified a number of ways in which we could save money. Those ways have been implemented, and we have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars because of it. I continue to work on the budget almost daily. It is not something that you can put on the shelf and ignore. You need to work with it, you need to be prepared, and you need to use it when you're strategically planning for the next year. The budget does not take care of itself. It takes work, it takes cooperation with the administration of the county, and it takes cooperation with the county commissioners. I think I'll leave my comments at that, and I'll await Kurt's reply.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
The budget consists of many line items, and each line item has a max dollar amount to it. I feel the smartest thing to do is create a spreadsheet for each line item so that it tabulates your spending and you can have an instant result on what's left with that line item. I don't think it's rocket science. The budget does not take care of itself. I don't think anyone has ever said that before. And again, as I said, the Sheriff's Association has an academy. I'll be enrolling in that academy. They're going to cover those things and probably many other things for newly elected sheriffs. The main thing with budgeting is that the person in charge of budgeting has to be financially responsible. You can't be terrible with money and be put in charge of a budget. There's going to be a lot of workshops to attend, and I'll learn just as every other sheriff before me has learned how to do budgeting effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob, response?
Just a real quick response. If you don't know how to manage the budget before you get into it, going to an MSA training is not going to do it for you. They do not teach budgeting there. That is learned long before you ever take office.
Thank you, Bob. Anything further? Kurt?
No.
Okay. So I believe then it is Kurt's turn, and lost my site. Could you please explain how you would convince commissioners to make funding the sheriff's office a higher priority?
I think the best thing that can be done there is to explain the need. If we don't explain the need to the commissioners, they're not going to see why they need to increase funding for whichever line item that we have. I think that having a close relationship with the commissioners is very important for the sheriff, and being able to explain what it is that we need to fund for an increase in our budget on that issue is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
Developing a relationship with the county commissioners is absolutely crucial. I have developed that relationship, and we work together very closely. We do not have a lot of conversations outside of board meetings, but there is information that can be passed and shared to them through the administrator with a plan. Once you have established that communication, things go much easier. Now, the commissioners don't give me everything I want. They have good reasons why they don't, and they have to run the county budget and stay within budget. But we've come a long way. I believe that the county commissioners have entrusted me. They believe that what I'm doing is correct. They can see the results of the saving of the money, and they are willing to now invest in other technologies that we need. The other thing is you have to attend county board meetings to develop a relationship. My competitor here has not attended a county board meeting.
Thank you, Bob. Response from Kurt?
Yep. Part of budgeting is determining what items you're short of to function properly as a functional sheriff's office enforcing the law. When we get to a point where our sheriff puts out an email that we don't have enough money to buy ammunition, we have a problem. You can go to all the schools you want, you can talk all you want about budgeting, but if you can't supply ammunition for us to practice, that's wrong.
Thank you. Anything further, Bob?
That email does not exist. What that email said was we were no longer going to issue monthly allotments until we had completed our qualifications in the spring. That has now been rescinded. We are now back to issuing ammunition on a monthly basis.
Thank you, Bob. Bob, this next question is for you. How has the 2010 tornadoes and the I-90 bus crash affected you and the Freeborn County Sheriff's Office?
Those two incidents, both of which I was involved in, prompted me to pursue the full-time emergency management position. We needed a full-time emergency management director. That was not one of the things that I campaigned on, but as soon as I got elected, that is one of the things that I told the commissioners that I felt was extremely important. There was nothing wrong with our part-time emergency management director. I would have asked that he stayed on for full-time, but he did not wish to pursue that. A full-time emergency management director provides that planning that we need for all disasters. It guarantees us that we can get some grant funding. We get reimbursement from the state because of a full-time position. There's just a whole host of reasons why we need a full-time emergency management position and why I pursued that after those events.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
I worked the night of the tornadoes, and there were aspects of our response to the tornadoes that was pretty much inadequate. We didn't have search patterns. We didn't have a system on how to mark residences that we had already been to. We didn't have plans for integrating, for example, the 12 state patrolmen who came to help us, and they sat for hours without being placed for use, and they ended up just leaving. For us to have an emergency management director full-time is a very good deal for Freeborn County. We need it. The one problem that I see is that our emergency management director is 2 hours away. I feel it's too far, and things are going to be in full swing before he even gets here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Hold on, Mr. Engstrom. If you don't have your cell phones turned off, would you please turn them off? Or put them on silent, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, that would be helpful. This next question is for you, Kurt. What have you done on your own time and with your own money to prepare yourself to be sheriff?
I've done a lot of research in the issues that I've been talking about. The last thing I want to do is shoot from the hip and accuse the sheriff of anything that is incorrect. I want to be factual in what I talk about, and I've done just that. Everything that I've talked about that I feel needs improvement, I can quantify in one way or another. I recently went to a meth and heroin class that was put on by Department of Corrections and Fountain Centers, and it was taught by Andy Johnson, who's an agent out of Mankato. It was an excellent program. I've also talked with our task force agent to be more up on what our issues are with drugs so that I can better understand it and as a sheriff respond to the needs of drug enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
Prior to being elected sheriff in 2010, I spent a lot of my own time, my vacation time, my money, and I attended training in leadership. The Blandon Community Leadership Program is one example of that. And I invested my time and money into preparing for the position. Since becoming elected, I continue to constantly try to improve myself through more leadership training, through emergency management training, and in other ways to improve what I can and have to offer the sheriff's office.
Thank you very much, Bob. This next question is for you. What is your strategic plan for the next 4 years?
As I outlined in my opening statement, it includes remaining fiscally responsible. It includes improving our emergency management plan. That's imperative for a number of reasons. It includes a successful transition of dispatchers and the improvement of the dispatch center. It requires us to continue to improve our patrol presence and to bring on new technologies that we can use and we can afford. There's a lot of good technology out there, but we don't necessarily need it. We don't need to spend the money on it, but I want to bring forth the technologies that we need for safety and effectively delivering the services that we are responsible for.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
What I'd like to do is increase the training for all of our deputies. I think our training is substandard. When I take a look at what the police department is doing frequently, we're not following suit. The Army talks about battle-focused training. Train as you fight, fight as you train. We don't do that. We don't even have the ammunition to hit the range as often as we should, and to have training that is dynamic and not static. I want to also take a look at increasing the number of ICE detainees that we have in our facility. I know what the sheriff's position is about our loading dock. I want to talk to Department of Corrections myself and maybe present a number of plans to them so that maybe we could transform our loading dock into a secure detention facility outdoors so we can have permanent detainees in our facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
Kurt is suggesting that we need to increase the training of our deputies. I have done that many times over. We are now more than prepared to meet the needs of the citizens and to provide the public safety services that we have. Quickly responding to the loading dock option for outdoor recreation, it will not happen. Minnesota Department of Corrections remains adamant, and they have guidelines that they follow. They said, don't even try. It's not going to happen.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt, response?
The training is bare minimums at best in Freeborn County. It depends on who you are. If you're a sergeant, you get to go to classes. If you are your regular rank and file, you're not going to be going to much training at all. I haven't been to training. And that's just the way it is. I can't sugarcoat it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Kurt, this next question is for you. Should people with permit to carry be able to use the indoor gun range?
It's an interesting question. I've talked with some others about it. The indoor gun range is, of course, on county property, and we would be liable for any mishaps that take place. Also, we have to provide personnel to staff the range. I'm not saying no to it. I'm saying maybe on a limited basis with volunteers who would be able to staff the range, and of course with a thumbs up from our insurance company, that's something we could probably take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Bob?
That was a question that I posed to MCIT, who is the county's insurance carrier. Their response was, no, you cannot open it up to the public for public's use, and they would not support or defend any claim of injury that came from that. That even applies to employees who want to bring in their family. We can't do it anymore. It used to be a thing that we could do, and we all appreciated doing it, but it's been taken off the table. It's not an option for us. Our insurance carrier will not allow it, and I'm certainly not going to accept the liability for that.
Thank you, Bob. Bob, this next question is for you. I'll read it just as the question person put it. This concerns leadership. How do you feel about the handling of the sign with Bronson? A campaign sign, a political sign.
That's a difficult question to answer because there are so many variables for it. I can answer it best in this manner. The Elbert Lee Police Department responded to a complaint. They took the action of interviewing the people that were involved with it, and they made it determined that there was no criminal charges to be handed out in that incident. The next day, the sheriff's office received several complaints regarding the conduct of Deputy Freitag in that. We sent a person to the residence to confirm that there was actually an incident that took place, and based on that interview the information was turned over to Washington County for an internal affairs investigation.
I'd be happy to allow each candidate another minute on this issue if you need to explain further, and the same for you.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think that would be fair. It's more complicated than just 1 minute can offer. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Both agree?
Is that right?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
That internal affairs investigation that I spoke of is now complete. It has been handed back to Freeborn County, but no information has been released about that. There is an appeals period that will take place, and because of the union agreement and any arbitration that may take place, that isn't something that's going to become public for quite some time. Personally, I think that this whole incident could have been avoided if somebody would have not pursued a $5 sign. It isn't worth it. We have options available to us. He could have gone to the police department, had them investigate it without his involvement. That is hindsight, but that is what I feel should have happened.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt, 2 minutes?
I went over to that subject's house because my sign was in his yard. I never issued it to him. No one who supported me issued it to him. And on top of that, my sign was defaced. I was off duty on my own time with my wife in my own vehicle. I drove over there with the sole intent of pulling the sign from the yard and then leaving. I don't see anything wrong with that. I had no clue that the person who lived in that residence would respond the way he did. Absolutely irrational. There was no physical contact between me against him against my wife against him, as he alleges. He said my wife tackled him, and then I jumped on top of him. Later on, he told KIMT that my wife, the bruiser that she is, tackled him and then jumped on top of him. There's no credibility. The only contact between me and this subject is him chest bumping me. I was holding the sign behind my back the entire time. And I don't care if he chest bumped me, that's fine. I wanted to leave. My issue with this whole thing is how the sheriff's office responded. The PD handled the case, and one of our detectives went over to the subject's house and talked with him for an hour, soliciting complaints. I did nothing wrong. This is on the heels of the video. This is on the heels of the website that was created against me. It's all meant to distract away from my campaign, my platform, and what it is that I want to accomplish. I want to move forward positively with this last week and just ride on to the 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. 30-second reply, Bob?
The detective that was sent to verify this incident did just that. He verified that the incident happened. He did not investigate it. That conversation between Mr. Bronson, who was the one who was identified in this, and a neighbor was recorded. The detective did not solicit this event. He did not solicit anything against Deputy Freitag. and he did not encourage the person to go
Mr.
to the
Kindler,
media.
Please, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And any further 30 seconds?
I'm good.
Okay, so then this next question, I believe, that last one we began with Bob, so this one will be for Kurt.
Yes. Okay.
And I know we've got a lot of questions that we had tonight that were on more of the core issues, but I know that there were a few of these controversial issues that I think it's good to us to wade through in the public limelight. But then we'll get back to some more of the core issues. From a campaign's perspective, what are your thoughts on a controversial website lambasting one of the candidates? And by now we know which candidate that one was. Kurt?
First off, I feel that website was disgusting. It was dirty-handed. It has no bearing. It shouldn't be in this race at all. I have suspicions on who is behind it. But the thing that surprises me the most is that my opponent claimed that he knew nothing about it prior to it being published. I don't believe that, but that's what he says. When that website was published, why in the world would the sheriff not say publicly, either on Facebook or however means he wants, he'd probably just call the person who created it and tell him, you take that website down. We don't have room for that. You're not making me look any better. You're not making my opponent look better, probably even better. But it's disgusting and uncalled for. And it's making us look like a bunch of idiots. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
I do not know who created the website. I do not know how to stop that person from creating keeping that website prominent. I'm not sure how we get control of these things in this day and age of social media, when you can hide behind pseudonames and say anything you want and have no recourse to do that. I don't know how to stop that. And my opponent can blame me all he wants for creating it. I did not create it. I do not know who did create it. I can tell you that if it is determined, because it's under investigation, as I understand it, with the Alberta Police Department, who has farmed it out to another agency, that if there's criminal matters coming out of it, they'll be charged. If it turns out that it is somebody who supported me and it is a violation of the Sheriff's Office policies, they will be dealt with accordingly.
Thank you.
Gonna take 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Kurt?
I didn't say that my opponent created the website. I said there's a possibility that he knew of it before it was published. He said he didn't know how to make that website go away. I just gave him the answer. You put out publicly, it was obviously created by one of your supporters. You put out publicly for that website to be taken down. He failed to do that, and he failed to do any investigation, and that speaks volumes in itself.
Thank you. Bob?
There is no failure here. How can I investigate somebody that I don't know has done something wrong? How can I investigate somebody if the claim is that somebody from the sheriff's office? I don't know that. Kurt doesn't know that. I can't tell people to turn things off. I can't tell people to not go out and promote. There is free speech. There is the First Amendment right. There is nothing that I could do to say that. In fact, I did say in the Tribune that it was childish and unnecessary.
Thank you very much, Bob. This next question is for you, and it's an answer I don't even know, so whoever asked it was a good one. Was there an official union vote taken to support a sheriff? Explain how the vote was taken.
I can't answer that because I am not part of a union. I do not know how that was done. What I have heard is that an email was sent out to various union members from all the different bargaining units and asked if they wanted to support a candidate of their choice. Whether there was any response to that, I don't know. It was done over the county email internet system. That was deemed to be appropriate. However, it was done in a what's considered a polling place at a time when voting was available, and it may not have been appropriate for that question to be asked. But how the vote turned out, what it means is nothing. It's completely insignificant and irrelevant at this point.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
To receive official union endorsement, a candidate has to go up to the union headquarters and go through a pretty arduous interview process. They don't just hand out their support because you're a union guy or anything of that nature. They want to know who you are. Once you qualify, you're eligible for union support, including funding and campaigning. From my understanding, the votes were solicited by text message, and I don't know what the other bargaining units did. However, I've heard that the detention deputies chose to abstain because they didn't want retaliation. I don't know what came of the police department or the dispatchers, but with the road deputies, it was a vote of 9 for me, 0 for the sheriff.
Thank you, Kurt. Kurt, this next question is for you. What could be done to increase patrol presence within Freeborn County?
To increase our patrol presence, the first thing we can do that doesn't cost us any money is use our current personnel more efficiently. We have 2 road sergeants out of 3 who have effectively taken themselves out of road patrolling duties. They don't respond to calls. They don't help out with the things that are going on. They don't supervise their personnel on scene. And what I will do is ensure that they understand that their duties include patrolling. So we can get two extra cars on the road. The sheriff's office is very close to offering a conditional offer to a person to become our new full-time deputy to fill a vacancy for 3.5 years. I want to maybe increase it by 1 more to get us back up to 11. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
The state of Minnesota has mandated that counties take on many, many other functions. One of those functions is court security. We've had to pull one of our patrol deputies on a full-time basis to do court security. The judges are demanding a second one, and that isn't going to be possible with the staffing that we have. We need to return that one patrol deputy to the street by bringing on another person to do courtroom security. I have a plan to do that. In fact, when I made that opening statement, there is part of that enhancement is bringing on another person. It isn't going to cost a lot of money. I have the plan that will do that. The commissioners have not heard it yet, but there is tremendous support throughout the courts in the county to bring this additional person on and get our patrol people back out on the road.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt, response?
It's nice to have a plan, but we have to implement the plan. We can't sit on it for 3.5 years. One of the other things that we can do to increase our patrol presence is take a look at our transport deputies and have them serve civil papers and execute warrants, things of that nature, and that'll free up one of our road cars to actually patrol, because on day shift, you're working alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob, anything further?
Day shift does not work alone. There are several people on during the day. There is support from the patrol sergeants. What my opponent is telling you is completely false. A conditional job offer has been made to a person to fill our open vacancy. It's been open since April 25th when one of our detective supervisors retired, and I could not fill that position from patrol because it would have shorted patrol presence in the county.
Thank you, Bob. And Bob, this next question is for you. How much income has Freeborn County received from the ICE contract, that's the Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, last year? And is it on the right track? And I suppose that means, is the ICE contract on the right track?
In 2013, the amount of revenue that was received by Freeborn County from ICE is $1,675,000. That is down from 2012. There's no doubt about that. There was a restructuring in immigration reform and the government shutdown, as you recall, in 2013, which limited the funds that came into Freeborn County. The 3 other facilities in the state that hold ICE detainees were also down, but percentage-wise were further down than Freeborn County. We have developed a tremendous relationship with ICE. They are giving us whatever they can, whenever they can. The statistics in their office show that we receive more ICE detainees than the other ones based on percentages, and we're very happy with that. In 2014, we will far exceed what our income was in 2013.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
In 2010, the last year for Sheriff Mark Herrig, we made $2,367,000. Now in 2013, we're down to 1.6. The government shutdown lasted only 17 days. I mean, we can only hang so much blame on the government shutdown. The other thing that I think that we as an agency should do is not get hung up on the ICE contract. If we can't make more money from ICE, let's say that the detainees naturally have dropped. I think maybe they have, but not to the extent that we've experienced. Why aren't we looking at other options? Why aren't we looking at possibly talking to Prisoner Transport Services to see if we can have our facility be a satellite facility at possibly $99 a head? Why not bring Sentence to Serve back at $55 a head instead of having our facilities sit half empty? Thank you.
Response from Bob?
We have looked at those other avenues of potential revenue. We've looked at the Department of Corrections, who would really like to send people to our facility. Department of Corrections wants to send them to us at $55 a day. What sense does it make to fill up our jail with $55 a day people when we're already almost at an 85% rate of people in the jail when we can and do take ICE detainees?
Thank you very much. Okay, so this next question.
Mr. Freitag, do you want to rebut? You got it.
I would like to.
Yes, sorry, I didn't know.
Okay, that's
Go
all right.
ahead.
When I talk about the STS people coming to our facility at $55, I'm talking about when our facility has room. And looking at the figures, we've had room. We've dropped from 2.3 million all the way down to 1.6. 1.6 isn't representative of a full facility. We need to think outside the box and make money with our detention center, and this is how we do it. We take a look at other options.
Thank you. So then, Kurt, this next question will be for you. How can we make the jail part for the inmates just a little better? And it lists 3 items.
I'm sorry, jail what?
The jail part for the inmates, I suppose that means the jail portion of the law enforcement center.
Okay.
Just a little better, and it mentions food, vending, and newer TV, books, or even radio.
Yeah, that's a loaded
So I
question.
wonder if this comes from an inmate. I don't know.
Technology, you know.
Yeah.
What was that question again?
How can we make the jail part of the law enforcement center for the inmates just a little better? So tell me your view on that.
For whoever the inmate is, what I will do is help raise the quality of our food. I know it has been slipping, and that has been brought up to me before. We need to go into our facility and actually eat the food. If we're being shorted on ingredients that our contract says the ingredients will be in that meal, then it should be there. If it's not there, we've got a problem. That's what we're paying for. I haven't heard of any TV issues. I don't know if they want a 55-inch, but I've been down there regularly. I don't see any issues. I think the canteen services could probably be extended. That'll give them more things to buy and more money for us to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
Kurt's answer is indicative of somebody who doesn't know what goes on in the detention center. We contract our food service. It is constantly being evaluated. There's no shortage of ingredients. There is absolutely nothing wrong. The meal plan is approved and it is delivered on time as proposed and prepared. Canteen is being provided for on a regular basis. We contract that service as well. We also offer additional things like video visitation. We're looking at other ways of expanding some of the services that our inmates receive. Television issue is not an issue, I will agree with that, but we are doing everything we can do. Our inspections from the Department of Corrections and ICE indicate that we run a top-notch facility.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt, response?
I would like one. If we have top-notch ratings on our inspections, we've got a problem in the jail right now with a sexual deal that took place between two guys. The incident was investigated by the jail administrator, who has not a single day of experience in sexual assault investigations. The information that was obtained in the report is not going to help us if we are going to get sued in court again for failing to do the right thing. Thank you.
We're going to give Mr. Kindler an extra too.
Okay.
Bob?
35 seconds.
Okay. We recently had the PREA inspection, Prison Rape Elimination Act. It's required by the federal government to house federal inmates, and it's coming to the state of Minnesota. The incident that Kurt is referring to was reviewed by them, and they said there is absolutely no thing that was discovered that was inappropriate. It is a non-issue. We are not going to be sued by it. Our jail staff acted appropriately as they have on everything else. There is no lawsuit. There is no problem. What he says is false.
Thank you, Bob. This next question is for you, and I don't know if this happens or not, so I'm just going to read the question as it's written. But I know that where I lived in Washington State, this happened there too, because I did see it firsthand there. How would you propose to address illegal encampments that spring up around county during road construction season?
What was that?
How would you propose to address illegal encampments that spring up around the county during road construction season? So it's kind of a loaded question, assuming that it does happen.
Well, the assumption can be that it does happen, but it hasn't happened. We are not experiencing those types of situations. What we would do if those did happen is deal with the landowner and the people that are setting up the encampments and getting them to move into appropriate areas, campgrounds, whatever it may be, where they can legally set up and live while they are working on the road construction or whatever it is, assuming that they are people that are working with the construction.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
The first thing we would want to establish is if they're on private property and if they have permission from the landowner, we don't have a problem with that. They can stay as a guest on a property owner's land if they so choose. If they are on public right-of-way, other public property, then of course we're going to talk with them, be polite, and ask them to take up some other temporary residency, such as a motel or, like I said, on someone else's property with permission. But this is a problem that I've never encountered and a problem that I've never seen in Freeborn County.
Thank you, Kurt. Kurt, this next question is for you. Explain an investigation that you conducted, that you put a lot of time and effort into, and that you are proud of.
One that comes to mind is a case that I worked last year. A guy named Tom came to the law enforcement center, talked to a deputy about theft. The deputy told him that the case was civil and that there was nothing that could be done. He lost a lot of property. He was told to come and speak to me afterwards. I spoke with him. I determined that it was not civil, that it was criminal. And in the following month, I interviewed many different people, some of them multiple times. And in the end, I drafted a search warrant, and I searched the suspect's house. I found some of the missing property, found some illegal drugs. I also named a storage unit in my search warrant that yielded a stolen commercial grade laser level from Larson Manufacturing from 2007. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
The role of the sheriff is administrative, not investigative. However, to answer the question, one of the more important investigations that I conducted in my role as an investigator would have been the Good Samaritan abuse investigation. It was a very lengthy investigation involving multiple victims and multiple suspects. It took a lot of time and persistence to get it done in a timely manner.
Thank you very much, Bob. And now we have our final question. Just a second here. This next question, it'll be for Bob. Do you believe the sheriff's office should have a canine unit? A canine unit is a drug dog.
I would love to have a canine unit. The reason that we do not is it is extremely expensive, and it is not frequently used. We can better use our funding resources to bring in a canine from an adjacent county or city on the occasions that we need them. That isn't very often. Sure, if we had one here, we could use them more than what we would be calling for, but it is cost prohibitive, and it is something that I would very much like to bring back, but across the state, it's becoming such an expense that most agencies are getting out of it now, and only those that have them are hanging on to them and not increasing the number that they have.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt?
I think that canine can be a very useful tool. The thing with canine is you have to match a good dog with a good handler. If you have a very active handler who's engaged with traffic enforcement and using his dog properly, we could probably make some revenue off the interstate. We have a lot of narcotics and money running up and down I-35 and coming across from Chicago on I-90. If we have an active handler, we can do drug interdiction, which is what we don't do it. We don't do any drug interdiction, even though we have 2 interstates. We've had 1 sizable drug seizure, cash seizure, in the 21 years that I've been here, and that was just this last year, $63,000. We can greatly increase our ability to do drug enforcement with a canine unit and also other services as well. Thank you.
Kurt, I think I'm gonna have one more question for you guys, just to extend the issue of drugs. Can you talk about the sheriff's office and its relationship with the South Central Drug Task Force?
So far, the task force has 1 member, and it's from the sheriff's office. And, you know, not kicking my opponent in the pants, but he hasn't been involved in attending the CLEO meetings. I've talked with agents, and we need to be more involved so that we know what the trends are that's going on in our county. I would like to see us somehow be able to fund for another agent. If Albert Lee would be able to put one of their officers in on task force like it used to be back in the 90s when Gene Arnold and Mark Herrick were running the task force. They did a fantastic job. But we have so much drugs with only 1 agent in this area, and a lot of his work takes him out of this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Bob?
Now let me tell you the truth about this. I have attended those meetings. I know exactly what is going on. We have one of the best drug agents we have ever had. In fact, the task force is very adamant about keeping him. He is an integral part of the success of the South Central Drug Task Force. St. Paul PD uses this individual to conduct investigations for them. He is that good. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension uses this individual to conduct investigations for them. What does Freeborn County get in return? We get the services of St. Paul PD, narcotics. We get the services of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to come down here in Freeborn County, the bottom of the state, and do these investigations and do them well. That is the truth of the matter. It's a very successful program. In addition to that, the SWAT team is funded by the South Central Drug Investigation Unit. We do not have any members on that, but that is because we have Arnold on the task force.
Kindler, thank you.
Any response?
Yes. I never said anything about our agent. I know he does a good job. What I simply said is that our sheriff needs to be more involved in the chief law enforcement meetings that the task force holds. We have to be involved. I know that that hasn't been happening. I've been asking, and as a sheriff, we've got to be up on these situations so we know where we sit with our county, the type of drugs that are moving in, and what we can do to better combat it.
We'll give you 35 seconds, Mr. Kindler.
Thank you. I won't need all 35 seconds. I would just say, if you can't speak the truth, don't speak it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And now we will move on to the closing statements. I believe from the beginning that now it will be Bob's turn to give a closing statement, followed by Kurt.
And it's 1 minute.
1 minute.
Education, experience, leadership, a strategic plan for the future, accomplishing the goals that I set out to accomplish 4 years ago. I will accomplish the goals that I have set out in my plan for the next 4 years. Those are strong words from a strong leader. I'm not backing down. We're moving this sheriff's office ahead. We're going to become as professional as we possibly can. With that said, I would ask for your vote on November 4th, and I appreciate your time that you have spent to come here and listen to this forum. And please, whatever you do, get out and vote November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Kurt, closing statement?
I'm the best candidate for sheriff because I have actual leadership experience coupled with 21 years of real law enforcement experience and 20 years in the military. My plans for the sheriff's office are both fundamental and forward-thinking. As your sheriff, I will work for you, the taxpayer. I will ensure the sheriff's office will competently and professionally provide the services that you expect, but for many people haven't received. We have a unique ability to create revenue with our detention center, and I plan to generate as much as possible. I will also unite the department and reestablish ties with other agencies. I would appreciate your vote on November 4th to support the solution, and together we can get the sheriff's office back on track. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. And I would like to thank the room for remaining civil at a very contentious debate. And I also would like to, or in a contentious race, I should say. And I also would like to
End debate.
end debate. And I would like to thank the candidates for participating. Let's give them a round of applause.
Good job, Bob.